Everybody in, Holly?
Yeah, I think we're good to go. Everybody's in and it seems to slow down a little bit, so.
Great. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's March 24th. It's Wednesday wrap up, and we're glad you're here today. We've got a few things we want to share with you. Holly, switch to the next slide, please. So the first slide that I want to share with you is that until 5 o'clock tonight, if you want to make public comment on the Training Council general rules, you can do that up until 5 p.m. Any notifications that are received after 5 p.m. will not be accepted as part of the rules process. So got a little bit less than an hour if you haven't commented. And the email box it's Lara, Lara -BFS @michigan.gov. And that is the address that it has to be sent to. And please, in the subject item, put in there that you're commenting on the general rules. Great. All right, next slide, Holly. We want to take a little bit of time, and if we can get Dan on here and we can get Robert on, you guys as part of this conversation. We wanted to talk about reciprocity. And one of the things that I heard a few times today during the public comment is that there are folks in the state of Michigan that don't believe they can get reciprocity. That is not true. You can get reciprocity today by filling out this form. So you need to complete this document that we have up here. And by doing that, you fill in your information and you check the boxes for where you're seeking reciprocity. If you go into the kind of the fine print on the reciprocity level requested, there is some documentation that you have to provide. Give an example for the folks that have IFSAC, they're coming from the military. You have to be honorably discharged, so you have to show your discharge papers. But for anyone else who has pro board certifications in the state, it's a matter of filling out the form. And then there are some requirements on making sure that you're in good standing with pro board, or if folks are coming even or once worked in another state and have training that dates back to that state. As we move forward, if you are a Michigan Fire Service member, I shouldn't say as we move forward because we've been doing it for quite a while because we've been awarding these. If you leave the state and go somewhere and take a pro board course, and it's one of the ones that the boxes on the form that are identified in the BFS 258, then you can actually attach that certificate, check the box and put it in, and we can get you reciprocity with that, with the proper documentation. So, something I heard today is that the state isn't granting in-state reciprocity for members. That's not true. You have to be a member of a Michigan Fire Department, and that goes with any reciprocity, whether it's coming from out of state, in-state. You have to be a member of a department, and you can see it's pretty straightforward. You do need your fire chief's signature on the form, and you send that in. Also notice that you're attesting that you have not been convicted of a felony, and that is coming straight out of, and that you're in, that certificate from the accreditation organization that you are in good standing with them. Those are a couple of the criteria, and that comes straight out of Public Act 291. So Dan, Robert, anything to add?
Just that some of the people will forget to send their letter that they need from another, if it's coming from another state. They do need to get that letter from the other state saying that they're in good standing with that other state, that their certificates from the other state are in good standing. So we do need that letter along with that. And then just that the department has to put them in smoke. So,
okay. Robert, yeah, go ahead, Dan, keep going.
Yeah, just along with the application. So.
And what happens if they don't provide that letter? They just check a box. They don't provide a certificate. We don't get a letter, any of that stuff. What have you been doing with those?
We've been kicking them back.
For the most part, most of those.
Yeah, go
ahead, Robert. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, most of those applications have kind of been a conversation back and forth between the applicant and the Bureau in regards to, you need to make sure that you have this information in order for it to proceed. Right now, as it stands, some of those applications are still open because we're waiting for documentation to be submitted and verified But we are definitely processing reciprocity applications for all those that are checking all the boxes correctly.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I approve all those. They all come to me. So you and Dan have been doing a good job of getting those in. So, hey, Robert, you know what today is?
I think I do. I think it's Dan's birthday.
No way. Dan Hammerberg hit double nickels today. So if you're out there in the gallery today of the 60 people participating in the meeting, we want to make sure that we wish a happy 55th birthday to our very own Dan Hammerberg. So congrats, Dan.
Thank you.
And is it a good day in the UP?
It's
Happy
a great
birthday.
day in the UP. Yeah.
Is it warm?
Seems like it. I haven't been outside yet. It's been raining off and on, but it's been
Has it?
nice. Yeah. It's not snowing.
It's not snowing in the UP in March. That's a good
Not
thing,
below
right?
32 degrees. So
Yeah, cool. Okay. Anything you or Robert want to add on reciprocity? On, like I said, this was something I heard today, is that firefighters in the state can't get reciprocity. That's simply not true. And it's a matter of sending in your pro board certificate with the BFS 258, and we will get those processed. Some ask, well, why do I have to provide documentation? Well, I can share this, and you can go back about 20 years ago within the state of Michigan. There was a pretty good scandal in the state with a department that somebody was fabricating certificates, if you can believe that, 20 years ago. It was through some good detective work by one Deward Beeler, who rest in peace, Deward. But Deward Beeler kind of stumbled upon this. He started getting questions asked about all these certificates that were showing up. And they ended up reaching out to the instructor, and come to find out, people were pretty good 20 years ago at making certificates. So imagine what you can do today with the software available to you. So while some of you may think this is an inconvenience, I think on behalf of the state of Michigan, we need to do our due diligence to make sure that these certificates that are being put in are in fact in play and are in full. And also realizing that, part of the application is an attestation that you're not making a material false statement, and that that also is spelled out now in Public Act 291. So there again, we want to make sure that those who have earned those certifications, those pro board, those IFSAC, those certificates, we want to make sure that they're getting credit for them. But we also need to make sure that they are in fact in good standing with those organizations. So next slide. So one of the things that I want to share with you is the state of Michigan gets some money. Money comes back to the state of Michigan. It comes in a couple different ways. It comes back through FEMA. There is some money that actually gets directed to the state fire marshal's office. This is HMEP money. I have to make sure I get that right. To give you an example, every year the state from FEMA gets money. The money goes to the Michigan State Police, and this money can be used for courses predominantly in the realm of hazmat, but also there are some other courses that are approved in that are actually in officer development, that type of stuff. With that being said, we working with Michelle Solinsky over at the Hazmat Training Center, because the money comes through the Michigan State Police. We have a good collaborative effort with her. One of the things that I asked for specifically was this Hazmat IQ course, above and below the line. And if you'll notice, May 1st and 2nd is on a weekend, and May 15 and 16 is on a weekend. I wanted to make sure that this training, it's virtual, but I wanted to make sure that this training was available to all firefighters across the state. It doesn't matter which department you're on, but we were trying to really cater to the volunteer paid on call firefighters, or it could be even folks who are on career departments. If those dates line up and you're on duty and you wanted to tune in on these, you definitely could. So it's virtual. You do have to sign up. You have to sign up in My Train, which is through the Michigan State Police. It's not through the smoke system. It's through the Michigan State Police. One of the reasons why it's going through there and you have to sign up is rather than transferring the money from the state police to the Bureau of Fire Services, and then the Bureau of Fire Services back for the courses to the Michigan State Police, is that Michelle provides me with a document on the budget. I get to see where the money goes, that I can assure you that it's being spent in the right areas. And so we want to make this available. I also would ask you to do this. If you go to your participant list, which is at the bottom, and you were to click on that, and you open that up, it will show all the participants on the side. There is a method to, actually you can raise your hand in there. I'm interested if anyone has taken the Hazmat IQ course in the past and maybe could shed some light on what you got out of the course. This is what I heard. Every fire officer in the state of Michigan, or for that matter, every responder in the state of Michigan who is decent, I shouldn't say decent, who has an understanding of hazmat, but even more so as a company officer, to give you a decent idea of how you could apply some of these methods that could help you at a scene. So while it says Hazmat IQ, it's not just for hazmat technicians, it's not for hazmat specialists, it's not for ops folks, it's not for awareness people, it's for everyone. And in the state of Michigan, with your Michigan Firefighter 1 and 2 certification, or your Firefighter 1 certification, you are trained to the hazmat ops level. So with that being said, the last time that we hosted these courses, of course, that's a little over a year ago, that was pre-COVID, what I heard from folks was, holy smokes, I can't believe the little tricks of the trade, so to speak, that I learned that they felt that they would be able to apply out on the highways and the byways of Michigan, and thought that this was something I was directed to keep bringing it to town, so to speak. So that's what we're trying to do. Mark, you got your hand up. Holly will unmute you. And how about give us a little insight on Hazmat IQ, please? Mark, you there?
Yeah, sorry. I'm
Hey,
on my
welcome.
phone, so trying to get to the mute button.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a Hazmat IQ 6 months ago, and it's a pretty good course as far as simplifying hazmat, to take just to take the basic facts about firefighter safety, when to go in, when not to go in. You know, we all have sat through many hours of hazmat, and sometimes you come out with your eyes glassed over on all the fine details, but this is more of a gross, you know, when to go, when not to go, those type of things. And so it helps to simplify and give you confidence in when you're making decisions.
Cool. So you would agree every first responder in the state of Michigan would benefit from this course?
Most definitely. That I think it, even though we don't run on in the small communities, we don't run on many hazmat things. There's always the potential, but it helps you to not be afraid of it. You know, I know as me as the chief, you know, I've got a bunch of guys I'm responsible for, and I don't want to make a bad decision not one time and jeopardize somebody, you know. And so this helps you to, once again, just keep pounding in your head, you know, what resources and when to go and when not to go.
No, that's a great point, Chief, and I really appreciate you sharing with us today that, you know, ultimately you totally get it, that at the end of the day, it's the incident commander, it's the chief who's in charge, who's making a lot of these real-time decisions. And, you know, if you have another skill in your toolbox, there you go, right?
Exactly.
Cool. Chief, where are you from?
Birchville Township, just north of Port Huron.
I got it spotted right up in St. Clair County, right?
Yeah, right north end, right next to Sanilac County.
Yeah.
We've been in the last 4 days, we've been on about 30 hours of grass fires.
Yeah, you definitely have been busy over there too.
Absolutely crazy.
So keep up the good work, okay? Stay safe. Keep everybody
All right.
hydrated. So that is, you know, getting on that gear, getting out there in the fields, that's pretty tough on the body. And
Sure.
we appreciate what you're doing.
All right, take care.
Hey, Holly, who else do we have? I saw there was a couple people raise their hand.
Yeah, Ed Blake's got his hand up. So Ed, I'm going to unmute you.
And then Ed, you have to hit the button to unmute yourself once Holly gives it to you.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Ed, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, sir. I think it's a great course. I've actually had the advantage of having it a couple times.
Okay.
I think I'd be interested in the virtual course again. And I think what was really helpful was the laminated handout they give you, the plaques, and they're really easy to interpret and figure out what you've got in a short amount of time. And I think it would be a good tool to make sure that at least not every firefighter, every fire department received the training and had access to those charts that they give you.
Okay. And Ed, you're from Monday Township in Genesee County, correct?
That's correct.
And it's a combination fire department or paid on
Yes,
call?
it is. On call. I'm the only person that works a 40.
Okay. Well, thank you. Hey, Ed, while I got you on the phone, I was talking with Kimberly Pashkowski the other day, the manager with MI Prevention, and I just want to give a big shout out to you. I know as we as we are engaging with all the disability networks across the state, you've stepped up to be an advocate in that area. I know that you've been getting the equipment that we have, the specialty alarms, and you're getting them out to the fire department so they can get them put in. So I just want to give a big shout out to you. I know you're leaving the city limits of Monday to make it happen. I know you're racking up miles. I appreciate your effort as a volunteer in MI Prevention. And thanks for everything you're doing. You are making a difference.
Yeah, happy to do it.
Great. Thank you, Ed. Anybody else, Holly?
I have a question actually that came in the chat. Ted Solon said he went to the site and he didn't find any search results. Got any tips?
On the My Train?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we got this today from MSP. It may not be open yet because it may not be open yet. They sent me the flyer to approve it this morning. And I said to Holly, we need to make sure this is on MA Prevention. So Ted, keep checking. I have a feeling it's not live yet.
Ted's got his hand up. I just tried to unmute him.
Yeah, I did a little further searching. I read the fine print on the handout that you have there, and it says www.train.org/mytrain. I went there, and I was able to find the MyTrain
So
course.
you did find it?
Yeah, and
I put my glasses on for a minute. Now I can read the fine print too. I know what you're saying there. It's not easy, is it, Ted?
I put the URL in the chat for anybody
Okay.
that wants to find
Good. I
it.
appreciate that. So Ted, let's cut to the chase. How was maple syrup season in the Keweenaw Peninsula?
Good, thanks. I brought in 4 gallons from the woods the other day and got it all bottled yesterday because we've had some above freezing weather. So it's supposed to cool off for the next few nights. So we're expecting another run here. So been
Good for
on
you.
kind of a sabbatical, yeah.
Okay. How about, are you seeing the wildland fire, the grass fires picking them up in your area?
No, it's still very wet here.
It is, okay. I was talking with Dan Lutz from the DNR last week, and he was saying that it must be more of the eastern end of the UP, and the northern part of the upper is drying out very quickly. So stay safe up there, okay?
Thank you, sir. We will.
Anybody else on hazmat IQ above and below the line? Kind of want to give a little
Mark has his
testimony.
hand up.
Who's Stan?
Stan? Mm-hmm.
Stan, you're up. You got to unmute when Holly clicks it off. There you go.
There he
Yep,
is.
yeah, thanks a lot. Hey, Holly. Hey, Kevin. How you doing?
All right, man.
Kevin, we put that above the line on here in Farmington Hills, and it was a great response. The class is top notch, and for the individuals who are contemplating it, they do have YouTube links that are out there that they kind of discuss above the line and below the line in detail in those YouTube links, and so the value in it is that it allows. I'm a hazmat tech, and we are part of the hazmat team, but it allows us to quickly identify chemicals based on their properties that we find. You can identify it right away. You can tell if it's a gas, a liquid, or a solid, and then it tells you based on that, are you going to isolate 300 feet, 150 feet, or 75 feet, just based on that. And then it gives you the in-depth details that you'll need to know. For example, if it's propane or propene or something like that, it'll let you know not just isolation, but how it's going to respond. It's a very good class. I would recommend it. And as a matter of fact, I've been through it a couple of times, but I am going to do it virtually as well again.
Fantastic, Stan. I appreciate you. And Appreciate you giving some feedback today. So we'll move on to the next slide. Hope everybody that can make either one of those two dates work. I wanted to take a little bit of time tonight to talk about Fire Officer 3 again. I know some of you are going to say, you know, you've talked about this the last few times. We still continue to get calls, and a lot of the stuff that we cover on the Wednesday wrap up is stuff that Dan Hammerberg and Robert Stokes are getting questions on. One of the things that we're out working on the Fire Officer 3. In fact, tomorrow there will be a memo coming out to solicit folks to be subject matter experts, to be part of, as we move forward with rolling this course out. There is a project at the end that meets all the JPRs for Fire Officer 3. So as Fire Officer 3 will be rolled out as a course, we're going to need some folks who will function as training coordinators for the state of Michigan that are specific to the Fire Officer 3 course. And what will happen as the course is being laid out is that when you go through the course, you'll go through the textbook. We're using the Chief Officer book by Dave Purchase from Jones and Bartlett. And you'll go through the chapters. The chapters build off of it. There's skill sheets that build. There'll be every other week, there's a Zoom meeting that you have to attend. And then the rest of it is supported on the virtual platform for Fire Officer 3. We're also looking for these subject matter experts too for video work. So each one of the chapters in the book, there's 11 chapters. There are topics within there. We're looking for Michigan experts, people who have knowledge and specific skills. Notice I didn't say chiefs, and notice I didn't say instructors, because there are a lot of folks that, yes, you could be a chief, you could be an instructor, but you also could be maybe even in your civilian job, some of the things that would be very helpful to know more about, especially on the people skills side of stuff. So one of the things is you'll see that memo will be coming out tomorrow. We're recruiting people to do the video work so we can get that taken care of. And then we'll also then be soliciting the subject matter experts that will work as training coordinators specifically for the Fire Officer 3. And then once we get the video part built out, we kind of identified who is going to be looking at grading these projects. And I say grading, you're making sure you're measuring it to a rubric to make sure that it meets the JPRs within Fire Officer 3. And then we'll be looking for instructors to teach Fire Officer 3. So we're getting closer. It's a kind of an exciting time. That's the next one that we'll roll out. And then people have been asking, well, what's the Bureau going to do next? And the Bureau next is going to work on Fire Instructor 2. I also have good news. We have done the interviews for the certification specialist, who we will be hiring, which will bring our team in the training division at the Bureau of Fire Services up to 4 individuals. And that position will be filled in the very near future. We've made a conditional offer to an individual, but with the state of Michigan, before anybody can be hired, you have to pass a drug screen. That's something the state requires for everyone. So we don't have the results back yet. So I can't come out and announce who that individual is going to be tonight, but I wanted to let you know that we are getting very close to bringing that curriculum specialist on board. Excuse me, not curriculum, certification specialist. And that person will oversee the certifications in the state, but also will be working with all the exams throughout the state. Will play a big part in the reciprocity issuing as we move along. So that's all coming out. So a lot of stuff coming out about Fire Officer 3 and the certification specialist. The one thing that I do want to kind of point people back to that diagram, we still get a lot of questions of, well, wait a minute, how come in the rules it speaks to a fire chief or a public safety director would have to be a Fire Officer 2 within 4 years? One of the things that if you look at this and you'd say, well, how come it's not higher? One of the things that the council thought was important as we sat at the table and worked on the rules is that what was realistically possible for all parts of the state. Now, if an employer says, I don't know, Ted, up there in the UP, if your township you live in decided that somebody to be the chief had to have Fire Officer 4, that would be a requirement that they would set forth. Okay. And they might even say you have to have it on the day they hire you. What the rules speak to, though, is to be a fire chief or to be a public safety director after the rules go into effect. I want to say that again, after the rules go into effect. If you're a new fire chief or a new public safety director, notice I didn't say an incumbent, I said new, then you would have to do fire officer 1 and fire officer 2 within 4 years. And so we know that there's potentially people in the state, because a lot of our paid on call departments might be everybody on the department's firefighter 1. In order to get to fire officer 2, you need to be a firefighter 2. Then you have to take instructor 1 and pass the course, not become a certified instructor, but pass that course so that you can take the fire officer 1 course. So then you can take the fire officer 2 course, and they go in that order. So council thought it was important to give people time. We did listen to people when we were working on that. And one of the things that we heard is that it's going to take people some time. So it gives you 4 years to get there. Now, some people might do it each, firefighter 2 1 year, fire instructor the next year. You kind of get the cadence moving out. Some people might get it all done in a year. That's fine. Some people might wait till the last year and cram it all in. We're not dictating that you have to be a certain within year 1, 2, and 3 or 4. We're saying that by the time, if the rules are adopted, that's where you would have to be. So when we get to fire officer 3, I get it. There's many of you on the call today that work within departments that have collective bargaining agreements to speak to fire officer 3. We will have an opportunity for folks who need to get that in the future or the near future, but also realize that that's not a requirement either of anywhere throughout the state, that anybody's got to be a fire officer 3 or a fire officer 4. Will we make those certifications available? Absolutely. I also will share with you, we have issued already in the state of Michigan reciprocity to members of the Michigan Fire Service for fire officer 1, fire officer 2, fire officer 3, and fire officer 4. And we don't even have the 3 and 4 program built out yet, but we've already issued reciprocity to firefighters across the state. So if you are coming from someplace else, or you are a firefighter here and you never left here, but you took some of these classes in other places and you have the certificates, you can reach out and fill out that reciprocity form, and we can get you on your way to that. So I want to ask, is there anybody that has any questions? Please raise your hand. If you're wondering why we're raising our hand, during the Fire Safety Board meeting last week, we were Zoom bombed. That's a technical term for somebody basically breaks into your meeting. There were some things that were said that some of you wouldn't want to hear. All of you wouldn't want to hear. It was very inappropriate. It is a national trend that's out there. So one of the things that we have to do now is everybody's mic is turned off. They can ask for the mic to be open, but that's one of the reasons why we're doing that. And we had heard about it. We had been warned about it by the state. We had not experienced it until the Fire Safety Board last week. And I want to give a big shout out to Holly Metz also, because as it was going down, yes, this person got some stuff out of their mouth and it made it onto the platform, but she did a very quick job of shutting it down. So thank you for doing that. So how about this, Fire Officer 3, anybody want to ask questions? We can raise your hand, please. And if you can't raise your virtual hand, and if you turn on your video and raise your hand, Holly will be kind of scrolling through there, and we would definitely acknowledge your question. No questions? Okay. It's good to hear. Apparently we're doing a pretty good job of communicating with the fire service, and you all have a pretty good understanding of where we're trying to go. Okay. Next slide. So I know we've only been at this for just over a half an hour. There's been a lot going on. We want to keep continuing to communicate with all of you. We can, if anybody has any questions, or there's any other topic you'd like to talk about in the fire service, then go ahead and raise your hand, and Holly will unmute the mic and we'll take the questions. That could be for any of our staff, could be even things that maybe you have for Dan and Robert. And then there's a reminder, we'll leave this slide up there so that if people are looking for that email address. It's available. It's also out on the website on the Training Council page. So any questions? All right, everybody, if there's no further questions, we're going to call this Wednesday.
Hey, Kevin, we do have a question.
do
Amy
have a
Dunn's
question.
got her hand up.
Yeah, Amy, how are you?
I'm good, Kev. Thanks.
How's retirement?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, I'm joking.
The
with
second one or the third one?
you. The third one, right? Yeah.
Right.
What's going on?
Can I ask a question about the new rules, a clarification?
Sure.
Okay, you have on there, I did send an email also, and so this
Okay.
is one of the questions in the email,
Oh.
but just to ask now. You had on there for hazmat responders under the very last section where you have to get an
Yep.
additional 12 hours. What is your definition of that? Because we, we're certified for hazmat operations.
Yeah. So most of the state is hazmat operations, right? And so one of the things that is in Public Act 291, it's actually in the law. One of the definitions was a hazmat responder. To put your finger on that, we're not quite sure what a hazmat responder is. And the reason I say that is somebody who's hazmat awareness, you could say they respond to hazmats, right? And they're limited on what they can do, right?
Right.
And then an ops person, you can do defensive type stuff, right? And then when you cross over to that threshold of tech, then you can, there's skills there. A lot of times the ops folks will assist with decon, dressing of the tech members, that type of stuff, right?
Yes.
And then you can work all the way into a hazmat specialist. You get that through the Hazmat Training Council or through the Hazmat Training Center, excuse me. So one of the things that we're a little, I've gone back and asked some of the people who were on the coalition when they framed that, what is a hazmat responder? Because the next problem we run into is what is a tech rescue responder? And then if you go into 1760 for tech rescue, there's collapse, there's confined space, there's ropes, there's trench, there's machine. So one of the things that's in there, the continuing ed that you need to do for your hazmat is actually comes back to there again, meeting your MIOSHA Part 74 requirements. Okay. So there isn't necessarily, and that's one of the things as we look at the continuing ed is that council was very clear on, it's not, 12 plus 12 plus 12 plus 12 and exponentially keeps growing. There was, there was a limitation to how far out that went. But within your disciplines, if you're performing within those roles, you're expected under MIOSHA Part 74 to make sure that you needed to receive the initial training, but there also needs to be ongoing continuing education commensurate with the duties you're expected to perform.
Right, but that wouldn't encompass an additional 12 hours for 3 years.
Not within the training council rules, no.
Right. So that entire list in Part 5C, I think it was.
Okay.
So even if you have 5 of those qualifications, you'd still only need 12 additional hours in 3 years, correct?
It was 12. Every member of the fire service is going to need 12 hours. And then it was whether you were an inspector, whether you were an instructor or a fire officer, whether you needed the additional hours. And
right, but
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. The very last section in the entire rule book is subsection C under continuing education, and it lists like 8 things. So if you have it says any one or more of the following certifications, you will need a total of 12 hours. So say I personally hold 4 of those certifications. So I only need to add 12 hours for all 4 of those certifications, a total of 12. That's it, not 48.
No, it's not 48.
Okay, so it's just a total of 12, even though I hold 4 of the certifications in that list.
Yes, but there are also some requirements within. Hang on for a second. I want to pull up the rules off of my iPad here.
Okay.
Believe it or not, as much time as we've spent on these, I don't think anybody on council's got them memorized. But within the different hours that are there, it says 12 hours total, right?
Right, yes.
So that's if you're a fire department member. But it's not 12 plus 12 and it keeps adding up, and pretty soon that number's up, above 20. You know what I mean?
But it does add, so you're a firefighter, that's 36 hours for 3 years.
Yeah. 12 hours a
Correct.
year. Yeah.
And then you're an officer, so that's an additional 12 hours for every 3 years.
Right. That's 4 hours a year. Yep.
Okay, so you're up to 48. Then I'm
No,
a
you're
fire.
not up to 48. You're up. Well, if you're looking at it over 3 years.
Yes, over 3 years total.
Yep.
Yes.
I want to be careful
So-
when you say 48,
okay.
though, that somebody doesn't think that it's per year.
Got you. Yeah, for 3-year
Okay.
total would be, that brings it to 48. So then also you're, a fire instructor, that's an additional 12 hours for 3 years. That brings you up to 60 total for 3 years.
That's
Right.
not what council is intending to do.
Okay.
So
I can
I guess the
clarify-
question here's what we've talked about at meetings. If you're a member of a fire department, and I'll break it down into years because I want to keep it simple. If you want to say, I know it's based off of 3, okay?
Okay.
If you're a member of a fire department, that's from the chief to the brand new person, it's 12 hours a year, okay?
Okay.
I also want everybody to know this. The authority having jurisdiction gets to pick the topics, not the state. You don't have to submit any paperwork to the state to get anything proved ahead of time. And you don't have to send any training rosters into the state to document your continuing ed that you do in-house, okay?
Okay.
If you're an instructor, you're going to need 4 hours a year or 12 hours in 3 years, okay?
Yes.
If you're a fire officer, you're going to need 4 hours a year or 12 hours within 3 years,
Yes.
okay? Beyond that, all the other credits go to those disciplines. So if you're a fire inspector in the state of Michigan, you need 60 credits, right? Over 3 years.
Right. Yes.
Okay. And a lot of those courses that you take at, let's say, the Fire Inspector Society workshops can be used coming back for continuing ed, coming back the other way.
Okay.
Conversely, going to a Chiefs conference for 3 days, you might earn enough credits within that to cover your officer. And then you have the instructors conference. And I also want to make this very clear, continuing ed can be done at your home department. You do not have to go to conferences. Are we trying to, was the talk about, are we trying to get more people to go to conferences because it'd be better for all the fire organizations? Absolutely. If that's how people want to get it, they can go about getting it that way. But it doesn't mean that down the road, you probably won't see Q courses where people are going to develop Q courses. It's a niche. Hey, for 8 hours on instructional technique, and you could use that towards your instructor, and then you wouldn't have to go to the conference, if that makes sense.
It does. Yep.
So that's why I say I want to be careful on numbers, because when you start adding numbers up, and we had this discussion that, you can get to the point where you've got so many hours adding this way or that way. Let's just keep it simple. Let's keep it to the 3 of those. Now, if you're a fire investigator, you have hours that you have to maintain in order to be an expert in that field. That's nothing that the Bureau of Fire Services is going to regulate.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I gotcha.
Thanks for asking. It's a good question. And that's the stuff that we're trying to, there's a lot of rumors that are out there and interpretation of different ways. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. It clears things up. So all of our MFIS credits will count towards.
Yeah, credits will be able to come different ways, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Okay.
I even
Yeah,
had somebody ask at a meeting the other day, I'm EMS IC, and I go up to the instructors conference for EMS because they have even more credits, right, to maintain that. Can I
Yes.
bring those back and use them on the fire side? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then the other
Yeah, I
thing
did-
is, what if you teach classes, you get credit?
Okay. Yeah. I did see those listed in there, the EMS conferences and stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Question?
Corey, you've got a hand up. I just unmuted you.
Thank you. Kevin, you answered that on the EMS side because that's kind of my primary side.
Okay.
On the teaching thing, if I teach a class on the EMS side, does that count towards the fire side as well
Sure.
for that stuff? That was one of the things. The
Yeah,
other
training is, this is the part where we're going to leave it to the locals.
Okay.
That's going to come down. Now, if your chief says that, no, that doesn't count over on the fire side, then they're the authority having jurisdiction.
Gotcha. The other thing is really more of a comment and kind of a frustration I've had. And it isn't on the fire side as much, but I'm wondering if maybe there's a possibility you could take a lead in reaching out to the other departments like MSP and the EMS side is, if you're on the 800 system, you had to take the 800 megahertz class, correct? That the state puts on for MPSCS. That was part of the stuff that we had to do. And we went and took a train the trainer thing. Can't get EMS side to recognize the class because MSP won't go talk to EMS side. Is that something where, you can maybe push it out to the departments and say, hey, at the state level and say, hey, can we work together a little closer to manage this? Because sometimes it seems like the departments in the state they're on their own little turf. I don't know. That's just the feeling I get from the outside. I don't know what it's like on the inside. You have that picture.
So Corey, you took a train the trainer through the state radio system is where you took it?
Correct.
And now you're saying that you want to host that training and you want EMS to recognize it.
Yeah, that should be a pre-approved in the blue book, And
have you submitted to have it put in the blue book?
I haven't as of yet. It was something I was talking with my regional coordinator about. My point being that's something I think as a state that the MSP should have gone to them and just done it. And they should have gone to the fire side and said, hey, this is this class. Here's our curriculum. Let you look at it, stamp it, and go. And I'd like to see more of that, I guess, is my comment.
I would suggest that you actually put it in for it to be recognized as a blue card or out of the blue book and see if they'll give you credit for that. And I will reach out I want to talk to Brad Stoddard, who runs the radio system for the state. I sit on one of the committees for the interoperability for the state radio system. This is the first time you've brought this to my attention.
Correct.
I'll ask some questions, but on the blue book side of stuff, a lot of times the way that stuff gets there is that somebody actually petitions to them for them to accept it.
Yeah, I was just hoping it would go a little smoother is all. It seems like a logical thing that agencies would work together a little better to smooth that out, especially as close as EMS and fire and police work together. Just my comments and thoughts. Yeah. Thank you for your time.
Just realize that EMS is over DHHS and fire is over at LARA. While we're both departments within the state, I think you're giving it a little more credit for how well we all work together. We do have a good relationship with them, but there isn't stuff that the training council does or the Bureau of Fire Service does that automatically the state police pick up or automatically DHHS picks up. So I would encourage you again, just like if you were putting in for an EMS class for any other topic to get it approved, that you would do that with DHHS EMS, see if you can get it approved. And Dan, are you still on Hammerberg?
Yes, sir.
You've actually submitted in the past to get them to the blue card or the blue book. I want to say blue card, but it's the blue book.
Yeah. Actually, and the process has changed a little bit since I've done it. So I think the gentleman who just asked about it is on the right path where you have to go through your local person. But basically you're submitting like you're submitting for a regular class. And then you end up having to ask them to put it into the blue book as well. And once it gets there, obviously, then it's a course that can be run with certificates and stuff. I've tried to do that with our Instructor One course and haven't quite been successful yet. But
right.
working on it still.
But probably on that radio class, even if you just put in for it, Corey, for a one time, then they will at least have seen the curriculum and then hit them up for the blue book.
Yep.
And that's got to be done, I believe, within 30 days before the class starts in order to get those approved through EMS. Okay. Any other questions? Stan's got his hand up.
Yes, hey, thanks, Kevin. I'm sorry about that. I raised my hand
Yeah.
earlier, but then we had a shutdown, a major shutdown here, planes falling out the sky, all kinds of stuff, but we put them back up. Anyway, I just wanted to share a few things. We did have a sprinkler save here in Farmington Hills, which we're real proud of. We want to share it. We're going to get it on the NSFA website and try to input that information because it's a verified save that not so much life as much as property, but we did want to document that on one of our streets here. The other thing, I think Kevin, you and Holly and everybody were talking about CO monitors, and I know Sharon was on that earlier. We did upgrade our CO monitors, our clip-ons, and that resource that you shared with us, particularly through John Shertell and Sharon, through Crocon, we got those monitors at about $100 less than our regular monitors. So we outfitted all of our bags again with the ones that expired with the new ones, and it's about $100 less. So we want to pass that on. And then the last thing is that we're all kind of familiar with the consolidation plan that NFPA is doing. So what NFPA is doing is they're consolidating all these standards down. For example, we talked earlier about hazardous materials. Previously, hazardous materials was 472, 473, 1072. But now, this year, the goal is to, and it's probably in effect because it was supposed to happen this year, all of those 472, 73, and 1072s are going to be consolidated down to 470. So everything for hazardous materials is going to be under there. But there's others, if we look at NFPA and we go on and look at that consolidation plan, it's projected out for the next few years. So 23 and 24, there's another consolidation happening all the way up to 2025. So it's kind of good to be a part of it because a lot of us think like I do, old school. You know, you've been doing it for 20 some years, and so you think about the old standards, but everything is being updated and consolidated. So now, as we educate and teach individuals, then we have the new program that we can offer based on the new standard. Then finally, as you know, 2021 EMAG is up. So all of the educational things that we're doing through EMAG for public education, NFPA has a new EMAG up, so that allows us to be current. It's all vetted material, and MI Prevention is doing a great job with that. They got all this vetted materials, and if you're social media present, like I'm trying to be, it's good material to share with anybody. That's all I got. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Stan. Thanks for, and just remember that sprinkler save you can actually put into the MI Prevention app also on your phone.
Thank you.
And we've had a couple of, up in Beaverton, which is up in Gladwin County just last week, we delivered some smoke alarms to them last July, and the chief sent us, he went onto the app, and Kimberly shared with me that we had a smoke alarm save from alarms that Beaverton put in a home, actually alerted the family to a fire the other night. So, great job to Beaverton Fire Department up in Gladwin County, up kind of, that's the same area that the flood hit back in the spring. So, they're out doing some outreach in the community even during COVID, and we've got a save to show for it. So appreciate all the work, Stan, of you and all the other over 400 fire departments now in the state of Michigan who are part of MI Prevention. Cool. Michael, I see you have your hand up. Okay. Well, for fire inspector, he needs the 60. That's a separate program. That's under Public Act 207. The hazmat is actually addressed under my OSHA Part 74. Okay. And when we're looking at the ContinueNet is not in effect yet. So for a fire department, you're looking at, if you're a member of a fire department, from the chief to anybody who's on their roster, it's 12 hours per year. If you're an instructor, it's 4 hours per year. And if you're a fire officer, it's 4 hours per year. So, and remember, everything's based off of 3 years. And there are some things within the rules about, you're supposed to get a minimum of 6 in a year, but there are carryovers, and we get, people are going to get hurt and they're going to be off work for a year. And what do you do in those off years? And, one of the things that came up, I was in a Michigan meeting yesterday with the Michigan Municipal League. And one of the things that we were talking about was if you look at most fire departments who are have an ISO rating, already have more continuing ed being documented than what Public Act 291 or the rules will ask for. So, one of the things is ISO, it was your organization hosted, it was a great seminar back right before the pandemic, right, on ISO. If you're meeting the ISO requirements for training, you're going to be meeting the training requirements for the Bureau of Fire Services. So just one caveat, and this was important though, Bart Pickleman actually attended one of our work sessions. Michael, I know you're on the Part 74 work group, so you know who Bart is. He's the director over there. And he let council know that, just remember that whatever ends up in the rules, the Bureau of Fire Services, those are requirements under Public Act 291. Everybody in the state is still required to meet the requirements under Part 74. And under Part 74, as you know, it's commensurate with the duties you're expected to perform. It's not a one size fits all. And in fact, depending on what services you render, you could have folks that you're still going to have to meet that requirement. He made that very clear. Just because you think you're making your requirement over here with Public Act 291 doesn't mean necessarily you're making your requirement over at Part 74. Okay. But any other questions? All right, everybody, we're rolling up on an hour, and it's been great to catch up with all of you today. We are back on 2 weeks from today on a Wednesday. We'll have the Wednesday wrap up at 5 p.m. We'll also be doing the nighttime edition of the Wednesday wrap up. So thanks for tuning in today, and be safe out there, and keep doing the great work that you're doing out there in the communities. Thank you.